We're fearlessly talking about the biggest stories that matter to you the most. Breaking news, John Calipari is finalizing a 5-year deal to become the Arkansas Razorbacks' next head coach, covering college sports like no one else. The biggest guests in sports. We now welcome in Hall of Famer Jim Calhoun.
Such a pride I had, I came to connect.
The legend, Tim Tebow, joins us.
We'll run it back. I like it.
The legend, Herschel Walker. Welcome in, everybody. Little Wednesday morning edition, Aaron Torres Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Aaron Torres. Hope everybody's doing well. Hope everybody's having a great day. I'll be totally transparent. Basketball on the court on Tuesday night was not great. So we're going to focus on a lot of off-the-court stuff today while also, of course, talking a little bit about the games we saw. We'll open the Kentucky AD job opened on our, not on our air, but during our show on Tuesday. I got 24 hours to kind of dig around, ask some questions. I think I have some updated information on who's a candidate, who's not a candidate, what's realistic, what's not. We'll discuss all of that. From there, John Tyson, the Chicken Man, coming through yet again. Arkansas jersey patch, game-changing deal with Tyson. We'll discuss that. And it sounds like there could be more news to come for the Razorbacks, which we will discuss later on as well. We'll do a little bit on the basketball on Wednesday. It just feels like everybody's ready for the conference tournaments. Kansas loses, Kentucky loses, BYU loses. UNC did win, though, to their credit. And we will wrap. Bruce Branch becomes the latest five-star to commit to BYU. The season has been a disappointment on the court because of injuries in Provo, but the positive news is the future is bright for that program. Before we get started, a couple quick reminders. Make sure that you are subscribed to our Torres Pod YouTube channel. New clips, new videos going up every single day. Really do appreciate all of your support of the show. We are rocking. We are rolling. We are about 100 subscribers away from 71,000. Make sure to subscribe if you have not already. You can also find us on Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts, where we always appreciate your support. You know whose else support we appreciate? Our friends, our hotel and casino partners. We appreciate Circus Sportsbook. So here's the bottom line. You may have heard we got some big news with Circus Sportsbook coming. I'll get to that in a minute. But first of all, it's March. I know many of you do go to Vegas. If you are going to be in Vegas, best place to check it out. Check out all the games. Circus Sportsbook on Fremont Street. It's unbelievable. What I also know, a lot of you can't get to Vegas. And so what I've been telling you for months, you got to check out the brand new Circus Sportsbook at the Mint Kentucky Downs in Franklin, Kentucky. All of the same great hospitality of the Circus Sportsbook in Vegas come to the East Coast. And really what is exciting about the partnership with Circus Sportsbook and the Mint is this. The Mint is bringing Torres to the Circus Sportsbook. Okay, so details are here. Many of you have heard, some of you have not. But next week, the night before the SEC tournament, I want all of you guys and girls to come hang out on your way to Nashville. If you're in Nashville, swing by. It's about 35 minutes from Nashville, 20 minutes from Bowling Green, Kentucky. But we are having a hangout, a watch party, whatever you want to call it, at the new Circus Sportsbook at the Mint in Franklin, Kentucky. We will have free food. We will have free drinks, maybe prizes, maybe giveaways. We'll be watching games. Swing by. Check it out. Probably be about 7 Eastern, 6 Central time at the new Circus Sportsbook at the Mint. You got to come hang out. If you want to come hang out, by the way, RSVP, Aaron Torres, podcast questions at gmail.com. We've had a lot of you RSVP already. Limited space, so make sure to come swing by. The new Mint Sportsbook, Mint Kentucky Downs in Franklin, Kentucky. We will be there next Tuesday. We need you with us. RSVP, Aaron Torres podcast questions at gmail.com. With that said, it is a very busy Tuesday in the world. Today's Wednesday. In the world of sports. No more time to waste. So, folks, let's do it. Let's get to the topic of the day. Topic of the day, like I said, we still got games going on here in the middle, early beginning of March. But at the same time, Wednesday was a little bit of a slow day in the world of college hoops. Everybody just seems to be ready for the conference tournaments. And so instead, what I want to do is focus on a story that broke during our show on Tuesday. Okay, if you were watching live, we had Mike Luke from Arizona on. It was an awesome interview. We come back from commercial, and I see the news that Mitch Barnhart, the longtime AD at Kentucky, he has been there since, I believe, 2002, has officially basically announced his retirement, not totally announced his retirement, but he will no longer be the AD. For the first time in literally about 25 years, about a quarter of a century, Kentucky will have a new AD in charge. And so what I wanted to do, we reacted in real time, but I felt like, you know what, there's so much new information coming out. I made some phone calls. I sent some texts after the show on Tuesday, that it just felt like today is a good day to reset. Where are we at with this hire? Where does Kentucky want to go? Who's realistic? Who isn't? And who I ultimately think maybe could potentially get the job. So first of all, I think the big piece of news, because I got a little bit of pushback on this in the comment section, because, all of my, teases and titles of videos and stuff said Mitch Barnhart retires as AD at Kentucky. And some people say he's not retiring, Torres. What are you talking about? Well, first of all, he is technically retiring as the AD, but he is staying on at the school. And so that came out after the show. I think it's interesting, just the dynamics of it all. He's basically, I'll tell you what, let's just start. Matt Jones, Kentucky Sports Radio, did reach out to some spokespeople at the University of Kentucky. Matt put out several tweets. Let's start with the first two, producer Matt, that Matt Jones put out. The first one spoke to a spokesperson at UK about Mitch Barnhart's role with the university after retirement. I am told Barnhart will have no role in athletics. His position is on the academic side, about helping make UK a top place to put students in jobs and careers in the sports workforce. And we will continue from there with the second tweet. Barnhart will be moving to a campus position, and the role is not designed in any way to have management or oversight over UK athletics, not even in an advisory role. He is helping create a UK academic sports workforce program. So one, I will say this. I do think that is an important note, right? Because we hear he's retiring. Then we hear he's staying on in some sort of advisory role. And I think the default thought is he's going to oversee the hire. He's going to handpick the next person. He's going to have a say. And I think with Kentucky, I think most people kind of feel like, okay, it's time to move out of this era for all of the reasons that we discussed on Tuesday's show. Mitch Barnhart has done a lot of good things. It's worth noting, by the way, and I don't think I necessarily gave him enough credit for this probably on Tuesday's show, but a lot of the non-revenue sports, volleyball's had great deal of success. Obviously, the cheer program is historic, etc. So he's done a lot of good. But there's also a lot of things behind the scenes that Kentucky fans have been frustrated with, not just the Mark Pope hire, which, maybe we talk about at some point during this segment, but, a lot of the NIL stuff, a lot of the revenue stuff, basically feeling like in this new era, Kentucky did fall behind some other schools. And so it is important to note that he will not be part of the athletics department. He will not be part of the search for the next AD. And he is going to still be at the school, which I think is pretty cool. Now, I'll tell you this, what's even cooler? $950K plus full insurance. That's really cool. I saw some pushback about, why are you paying $1 million for basically an advisor in this world where we need to create all this revenue and stuff. It doesn't sound like the money is coming from the athletic department. So if that's the case, then I'm just going to stay out of it. That's, if it's not coming out of the athletes' pockets, if it's not hurting NIL for football or basketball or women's basketball or whatever, who cares? So that is Mitch Barnhart. So one, he is retired as the AD. Two, he will stay at the school. Three, it is not within the athletic department. And I think that is important as we start to look ahead. Now, Matt, I did not send you this part, but it is worth noting the school president, and Kentucky fans, you'll have to help me with the pronunciation here, Eli Caputo, something like that. He did put out a statement saying that the search will both feature internal and external candidates for the job. And so what I want to do now is start breaking down who are some realistic names, who are some not. And then frankly, should you even be going internal in this world that we have created with college sports right now? Or do you need an outside voice with outside thoughts, all of that? So let's start because, again, Kentucky has acknowledged we are going to look at internal candidates as well as external candidates. And as far as internal candidates are concerned, it feels like the number one name appears to be a gentleman named Mark Hill. Now, I have no personal relationship with Mark Hill. I'm not wishing him ill will. And, certainly if you're looking to stay internal, if you're looking for somebody who, knows the place, knows the landscape, knows all of that, then yes, he is the logical successor. He's the number two. He's been in that role for about 6-7 years now at Kentucky. And I think that, let me say this. I did do some phone calls and text messages and talk to some people that would know. I do think that if Mitch Barnhart had his personal choice, I do think Mark Hill would be the guy. I don't know that there's going to be a lot of enthusiasm for him, though. And I bring it up. I wish him no ill will. If the interview process happens and he's the best candidate, so be it. Good luck, and I hope you crush it for the next 10, 15, 20 years, however long you're there for, okay? But I think what the feedback and brushback or whatever you want to say that I've gotten is that essentially we being Kentucky, you need to break off of this Mitch Barnhart era. Again, a lot of successes, but a lot of places that you fell behind. And it just doesn't make a lot of sense to hire someone internally, specifically the guy that basically helped make all of the decisions that have led you to this situation where Mitch Barnhart has now retired, right? If you feel like you've fallen behind in NIL, if you feel like you've fallen behind in raising money and doing the things that you need to do to run a modern athletic department, then doing the exact same thing with the exact same people doesn't seem to make a lot of sense. And so to me, like I said, I've been told that this would probably be the guy that Mitch Barnhart wants. I don't know that outside of Mitch Barnhart, there's going to be a lot of internal push for him. I mean, listen, I hate to say it like this, but it is a game of survivor. People that will benefit from Mark Hill becoming the AD are going to push for him. But at the same time, I do think there is something to be said about, you say that you need to modernize and get into the new era. I don't know that the guy who has been there for the last however many years is the guy to do that, but it remains to be seen. Like I said, I have no ill will. I'm just sharing what I have heard. And so if it is him, I hope Kentucky wins 5 national championships in basketball and 2 in football and makes 5 more college football playoffs. I'm just telling you what I've heard. That's the deal with Mark Hill. By the way, also internal, and this is certainly an interesting name that and I know this is a little bit inside Kentucky, but it's an important story in the hierarchy of college sports, right? There's only 16 AD spots in the SEC, and one of them is now open, okay? And by the way, the longest tenured AD in the SEC just retired. So the other name that has surfaced, at least on the surface level, is a young lady, a woman named Rachel Baker, okay? And by the way, this threw me for a loop because I'll give you a quick side story. So we know that in addition to needing a new AD, Kentucky needs a GM for basketball. Well, the Duke men's basketball GM is named Rachel Baker. So I go on social media. I went to the gym after the show the other day, and I was like, oh, my goodness, what's going on in Kentucky? And I see something about, are they going to hire Rachel Baker as the AD? And I'm like, what? Rachel, what, the Duke? No, there's a different woman named Rachel Baker who's been at Kentucky. Again, there is no ill will when I say this. I don't think she's a candidate, and I actually think there might be like a riot on campus if she gets hired. For people who don't know the backstory, listen, again, there's no ill will. I'm just sharing what I know, is that we talked yesterday about the relationship between JMI and Kentucky. JMI is the NIL arm. They do a lot of things. They sell sponsorships in the arena. So I mentioned it yesterday. Like if you were at Rupp Arena and you see a banner for, I see the Malone's restaurant banner, Dunkin' Donuts, Bud Light, whatever. That is not sold directly by UK Athletics. It's generally sold by a company called JMI. The issue becomes JMI has also largely taken over Kentucky's NIL operation as well. And basically a lot of these athletes, there's conflicts of interest of if an athlete wants to come to Kentucky, they have to sign away a lot of their NIL rights opportunities to companies that align with JMI. So quick example, and this isn't a perfect one, but let's say there's a basketball player that wants to do a deal with Starbucks and JMI has a deal with Dunkin' Donuts. You can't do the deal with Starbucks if you're the player. And so it's held up a lot of the recruiting issues. And so JMI has been an issue. So why am I bringing all this up? I'm going so far into the weeds. I can't even see my way through the forest here with Kentucky. The reason is Rachel Baker's husband works for JMI. And so listen, I don't know how nepotism laws work in the state of Kentucky, and maybe she's the right person at the right time. I can't see her getting the job because it just kind of further intertwines this relationship in which Kentucky fans are already frustrated because a lot of people are perceiving that they're losing recruits because of the relationship with JMI. I mentioned it a few weeks ago, or a few days ago, Christian Collins, top 10 prospect in the class of 2026, was believed to be a heavy Kentucky lean, ready to commit. And then the JMI stuff got tricky. So I cannot see Rachel Baker being a factor. Really quickly, as far as the external candidates are concerned, let me even start before I give names by saying this. Is one, listen, external, as I said, there's only 16 AD spots in the SEC. And so there's going to be a lot of people that are interested. And transparently, there's going to be a lot of people that we don't know the names of now that could be interested. Think of it as no different than a coaching search, right? Kentucky's probably a bad example because we knew Will Stein would be a candidate, but the Florida coaching job opens in the SEC. And yeah, the program's been down, but there's only 16 SEC head coaching jobs. And so John Summerall might not have been on the original list, although I think he probably was. But I only bring it up to say that there are going to be so many different names that emerge over the course of the next few weeks. And it will be interesting to see. Do they go with a sitting AD somewhere else? If they go external, of course. Do they go with a sitting AD somewhere else? Do they go with somebody that is not an AD but has a big football background as we get deeper into this football-fueled future of college sports? Let's talk about a couple candidates. Before we do, though, really quickly, while I have the attention of so many folks in Kentucky, quick reminder, I'm going to be in Kentucky next week. So day before the SEC tournament, you should come swing by, hang out with Torres. We will be at the new Circus Sportsbook at the Mint Kentucky Downs in Franklin, Kentucky. You can see the picture on the screen, the Mint Gaming Hall. It's in Franklin, Kentucky. It's about 20 or so minutes from Bowling Green, 35 minutes from Nashville. Night before the SEC tournament, we will be at the Mint hanging out. Free food, free drinks. And Kentucky fans, I know you need a couple cold ones after what you've been watching these last couple weeks. Free food, free drinks, come hang out. We'll be watching games. We'll be hanging out, maybe prizes, giveaways, things like that. I actually have a call with the Mint this afternoon, so I will get you an exact time within the next 24 hours, but it'll probably be 7 Eastern, 6 Central, and the Mint is in the Central Standard Time. But swing by the Mint. I will be in the beautiful state of Kentucky next Tuesday, March 10th. All right, let's keep talking about the AD search here. And I mentioned external. Listen, the job opened yesterday. There's not going to be a definitive list of 5 today. Mitch Barnhart, by the way, it is worth noting, is staying on until June 1st. So they don't have to make a hire in like the next 10 days, right? They're not firing a basketball coach and need to make a new hire. Like, they're going to take their time. But let's go through some of the candidates. And listen, the one that I talked about on a Tuesday show when we were reacting in real time to Mitch Barnhart being fired was Dwayne Peavy at DePaul, and I stand 10 fingers, 10 toes down. I still think he is a great candidate, and probably right now, without knowing who exactly is interested, he would be the guy that I would personally hire. And I said it on the show yesterday is, yes, I know Dwayne a little bit. No, I don't benefit at all from bringing up Dwayne's name. I don't get access to anything that nobody else gets access to. It doesn't matter to me. But it does make a lot of sense from my perspective, to the point that I very rarely publicly advocate for people for jobs, coaching assistants, whatever, because at the end of the day, like, here's the thing, right? Is that when I put out somebody's name for a coaching job or an AD job, I then get 10 other texts of, why didn't you name me? And what about me? And you think about me? Why'd you forget about me? It's just not, it's like dealing with children. Okay. So I very rarely publicly put out somebody's name, but I feel, and I truly believe that Dwayne Peavy is or would be a good candidate. Again, without knowing who else is available, that's who I think Kentucky should consider. For people who don't know his background, he is the current AD at DePaul, but he spent 12 years at Kentucky before that, from about 2008, 2009 to about 2020, 2021, okay? During that time, he basically became Calipari's right-hand man. Basically, anything you needed to do with Calipari, you went through him, you dealt with him, whatever. But it's worth noting, like, listen, he was there when Mark Stoops got hired. He was there when, and I'm sorry, I'm going to butcher this name, Kentucky fans, don't be mad at me, Nick Mingione, how do you say it, the baseball coach? Like, Dwayne was on the ground for all of that, but unlike, and again, this is no disrespect, Mark Hill, he has gone out and become the AD at DePaul. We mentioned it yesterday. DePaul right now, believe it or not, is in the midst of the best basketball run they have been a part of in 20 years. The Chris Holtmann hire was a freaking home run, okay? It's DePaul. I'm not saying, no, they're not UConn. No, they're not St. John's. But considering they could get the double bye and the 4 seed at the Big East tournament, which shows you how far this program has come. So he's made a very good basketball hire. It's worth noting he made the hire before, and I shared this story yesterday. I know for a fact, this is definitive, it's proven, and it's worth noting, it's been reported by other people. When he made the first basketball hire, he wanted John Shire. John Shire at the time was an assistant at Duke. Coach K was rolling. There was no reason to believe he was going to retire. John Shire is from Chicago. He wanted the job. Dwayne Peavy wanted to hire him, and he was overridden by the school president, and we explained it at the time. The school president was like, I don't want to hire a Chicago guy because if it doesn't work out, we're never going to be able to fire him, and he's going to have too much support in the city and blah, 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 and this and that. And so it's not to say that, one, that Chris Holtmann hasn't worked out, or two, that John Shire would have been this John Shire had he gone to anywhere other than Duke. But it is worth noting, crushed the basketball hire, nearly hired John Shire. And so to bring it full circle back to Kentucky, one, he's proven he can. Listen, let's grade the Chris Holtmann hire at DePaul versus the Mark Pope hire at Kentucky. You do the math there, you decide what you want. So that's one. But two, on top of it, I would also say this, is that, you go back to 12 years at Kentucky. He knows all the boosters. He has all the relationships. He knows the people that matter there. So you can hire somebody that's never been at Kentucky, but you're talking about, the work that's going to have to be done to build those relationships that Dwayne Peavy already has. I think the very interesting part with Dwayne Peavy that needs to be discussed, you know who he has a relationship with? All of the former basketball players who are now in the NBA. And it's funny, I was thinking about this. There is the next generation of college sports is all going to be about revenue creation. How can we raise money to pay student athletes? Okay. And so I bring it up because when I look at this next generation, everyone is going to have to find sources of revenue somewhere. And Kentucky has maybe the best untapped resource of revenue that any school has that is essentially untapped, and that is all these players that are in the NBA that are signing $100 million, $200, $300 million contracts. Just for fun, I looked it up. Just one player, Devin Booker, has made over $250 million playing basketball. Anthony Davis has made over $350 million playing basketball. I'm not great at math. That is $600 million between two people that Dwayne Peavy can call today and get on the phone. I'm not saying you can get a commitment or whatever. I do think those relationships matter, and he might be outside of John Calipari, who, by the way, I had Kentucky fans like, do you think Cal would take the AD job? John Calipari is not coming back to Kentucky to be your AD. Stop. By the way, Rick Pitino is not coming back to be your basketball GM. Stop. Anyway, now that we got that all off the table, outside of John Calipari, Dwayne Peavy's the only one with those relationships. And if I can defend Mark Pope for half a second, I think he's tried to build those relationships, but it's not easy. So to me, you add all of that up, he makes a lot of sense. Now, I know what people are going to say. He's never run football. And listen, I think if he was coming from DePaul and had only worked at St. Bonaventure and Eastern Connecticut before that, then yeah, I would be a little bit worried. But the guy was at an SEC school for 12 years. He knows how to run major football. He's been around SEC football. Like I said, he was part of the Mark Stoops hire, whatever. So that is probably the lead external candidate. I think what's interesting about Mitch Barnhart, and this is part of his legacy, is that a lot of the best ADs in college sports actually did work under him at various points throughout the years. Rob Mullins at Oregon worked for Mitch Barnhart. Now, I don't think he's leaving Oregon for Kentucky. Okay, no disrespect. When you got a billionaire with a B who only wants to win national championships, a guy by the name of Phil Knight, that's about as good of a job as you could possibly have. Don't think that's going to happen. Greg Byrne at Alabama. Now, maybe Alabama, the seat gets hot but the hire is going to be made before next football season. Like I think if Mitch Barnhart was retiring December 31st and we had to go through another football season and Kalen DeBoer goes 7-5, then Greg Byrne might be like, I got to get the heck out of here. I don't think he's leaving Alabama, though. Mark Coyle at Minnesota. And by the way, a semi-good track record. He did hire PJ Fleck there. He has had success at other places. He worked under Mitch Barnhart. So there is this tree of guys and girls that have worked under Mitch Barnhart that are now ADs throughout college sports. Okay. But if you ask me right now, I just think it's important to note, right? Is like, I think we are at a place where it is hard to say who is going to be the favorite because, again, we don't know who will be interested. I think there's going to be 10, 15 names that maybe don't even get public, but I'm guessing there's going to be 2, 3, 4, 5 that do, of people that are interested in this job that we're not talking about today. And I think, again, it's normal for a job of this profile for that to be the case, right? When LSU football opens, all of a sudden there are guys that are interested in that job that you would never think of. When LSU baseball opens, when Kentucky. So it's not to say that they're going to get some home run that everybody knows. What it is to say is that there are going to be a lot of people that you're probably not familiar with that are going to be angling to get this job. Because, again, only 16 SEC AD jobs last time I checked, and one just opened. All right, so what we're going to do, we're going to take a quick break. I haven't looked at the chat, have no idea if the comments are flowing, if they're not flowing. We do got to come back. You talk about revenue generation. Oh, we had some big revenue generation in Arkansas on Wednesday. We got to talk about this one. The Chicken Man is back, and he's ready to spend. Quick break. Be right back. All right, we're going to get back to the show in a minute, but before we do, you know what we got to do. We got to thank our friends. We got to thank our partners. We got to go ahead and thank Cauley Puffs and CauleyPuffs.com. Yeah, you see the logo on the back of the screen right here. Okay, so I've told you all about Cauley Puffs, but family-owned company, not far from where I live. Joey, a huge sports fan. And one day he was sitting on the couch and he said, you know what? I need a snack that is both healthy but delicious, something my kids are going to love, something my family's going to love, something I'm going to love. And so he came up with Cauley Puffs. This is the new age health food snack. You don't need to go to the grocery aisle and buy all that crap, the Doritos, the Fritos. No, my friends, you need Cauley Puffs. Baked, not fried, avocado oil, no grease, healthy ingredients. But here's the best part. They taste freaking delicious. Actually, there's another best part. In addition to tasting delicious, in addition to being healthy, they are also taking care of listeners of the Aaron Torres pod. Okay, so check this out. All you got to do is go to CauleyPuffs.com. That's CauleyPuffs.com, CauleyPuffs.com, and you can get 15% off any purchase with the promo code Torres. That's Torres, Torres. It's that simple. 15% off any purchase. 1 bag to try them out, 100 bags to cater a party. Doesn't really matter. Promo code Torres. CauleyPuffs.com gets you 15% off. Cauley Puffs also available on Amazon. You obviously can't get the promo code there, but CauleyPuffs.com, CauleyPuffs.com, promo code Torres gets you 15% off any purchase. Thank you to our friends at Cauley Puffs. All right, everybody. I'm back. Good to be back. Good to be back. So just showing off a jacket I got here. I'll tell you what. We just talked a second ago about revenue generation in college sports. Well, let's go ahead and dive into a big day at the University of Arkansas. Let's go ahead and dive into a big day for this company right here, the jersey patch at Arkansas, but the jersey patch for Torres. Shout out Tyson Chicken. Okay, by the way, shout out to the folks at Tyson because they sent me a very nice care package last summer. We were talking about, Arkansas and the portal or something like that. But it was a big day for Tyson. I'm going to be totally transparent. This is like a full winter jacket. And while it is really cool, I am already getting hot. So let's go ahead and take off the Tyson jacket really quick, and then we will come back and talk about really what was essentially a landmark moment in time for Arkansas athletics. Give Torres a second. We're going to take off the Tyson jacket. Shout out John Tyson. Thank you for the kind gear. But I know the folks of Arkansas have much more to thank you for today. You know what? Let's screw it. I'll let you know if we're going to take off the jacket, man. Let's keep it going. Let's have some fun. I'm wearing the Tyson Foods jacket. And listen, we just talked about it a second ago with Kentucky. They're looking for a new AD. And the bottom line is in 2026, everything in college sports is about revenue generation, right? We now live in this world. Listen, I think at some point we're going to figure out whatever the next iteration of college sports is. There's going to be there's going to be salary caps, and there's going to be collective bargaining, and there's going to be all of that. But right now, and this isn't a political show, so I get bored even thinking about it, there's no help from Congress coming. I know the president is having this meeting with Nick Saban. I don't know if anything comes out of it. But at the same time, until something gets figured out, all college sports is going to be it's going to be 100% about revenue generation. How can you sell how can you sell naming rights to a football stadium, a basketball stadium, maybe a baseball stadium? How do you get corporations involved? How do you get the everyday fan involved? Ticket pricing is going to be a constant issue. Do you raise tickets? Do you lower tickets? How do you be fair to the everyday fan? Obviously, TV revenue. But the big new piece of revenue that everyone is talking about right now in college sports is jersey patches. Okay. So about a year ago, I think it was right before the start of football, I believe a year ago, the NCAA basically acknowledged, yes, we will allow jersey patches, right? So think a golfer, wearing a shirt, think NASCAR, think soccer, think whatever. The NBA now has jersey patches. Okay. And so there hasn't been a ton of movement on this front. It is worth noting LSU, I believe, has finalized a deal with Raising Cane's. I think it's interesting. The only public jersey patch that I'm aware of that is officially official is UNLV with a biotech company out in Vegas. So this is the next wave of college sports. And on Wednesday, Arkansas made an official announcement that gentleman right there, his incredible company with their incredibly warm winter jackets, shout out to Tyson. Thank you again to the Tyson family for all the gear. But again, the gear pales in comparison to what John Tyson and Tyson Chicken are doing for the University of Arkansas, because we essentially got a record-setting deal for jersey patch sponsorship and much, much, much more at the University of Arkansas. So the deal was announced on Wednesday. There were reports that this was coming, but the deal was announced on Wednesday. Now, we don't have official figures, but I do think it's worth noting there were press releases, there were statements. I thought the best piece done on it was by Brandon Marcello from CBS Sports, where he talked to John Tyson, he talked to Hunter Yurachek, and Matt, we have a little bit of that article. You can go ahead and pop it up whenever you get a second. So this is from CBSSports.com. Arkansas Athletic Director Hunter Yurachek calls the agreement announced Wednesday the, quote, largest true sponsorship agreement in college athletics right now. The intention is that every student athlete will be positively impacted by this partnership. That was really important to Mr. Tyson and Donnie King, their president and CEO, and Christina Lambert, their chief growth officer, and it's really important to us as well. It continued. Specific financial details of the Razorbacks mega deal with Tyson Foods, headquartered just a few miles away in nearby Springdale, Arkansas, were not disclosed. Tyson Foods chairman John Tyson told CBS Sports, however, that speculation about a 9-figure agreement is misplaced. It's not $100 million. Let's put it that way, John Tyson said. One, I love the fact that John Tyson can just shoo away rumors of $100 million. So it's a 5-year deal. So it could be worth, if it's $10 million a year, that's $50 million. If it's $15 million a year, that's what, $75 million. I love that he can shoo this away. But listen, I don't think it is hyperbolic to say that this is a game changer. Okay. One, we all know that revenue generation is all that matters in college sports. I know there are people that think the prices are going to go down. Eventually, it's not going to cost $40 million to put together a football roster or 8, 10, 12 million to put together a basketball roster. I actually fundamentally disagree, because the best players, there are so few difference-making players at all the important positions in basketball, in football at quarterback, in football at offensive tackle, in football at defensive end, that if you got one, you got to pay them. And if you don't, you got to go get one, right? And so this notion that all these prices are going to go down, I don't believe it. Look at the football cycle this year. Brendan Sorsby reportedly got $5 million from Texas Tech, because what's the alternative? Having, paying 15, 20 million for the rest of your roster and having an $800,000 quarterback that's the 8th best quarterback in the Big 12? No, you need the quarterback, so you went and paid him. It's no different in basketball. It's not going to change in basketball, by the way, because there's just not that many impact guys. And so I do believe that it's not going to change. The numbers aren't going to go down, and this is huge. Beyond that, a couple different thoughts. One, the price I'm fascinated by. I don't know if it ever gets out. John Tyson said it's not $100 million. That would be a $20 million per year deal, because, of course, it's a 5-year deal. So it's under $20 million. That's all we know. Now, I think I saw something where, first of all, the UNLV jersey patch deal is about $2 million a year. I think it's fair to say that in the SEC, major program, only FBS or only power conference program in the state, it's going to be well north of $2 million. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if it's $10 million, if it's $12 million, if it's $8 million per year. It is significant revenue now going into the athletic department. I think what's also interesting is that it said in that statement that it goes to all sports. And I don't know if it literally goes to every single sport. And by the way, I should even backtrack and mention, didn't have a ton of time for notes today. By the way, I was running around like crazy, so I'm doing a lot of this off the top of my head. But I did think it was very interesting that it said that it was going to all sports. And so does that mean that, listen, football is going to get the biggest percentage, then basketball, and then we'll see what happens with women's basketball, with baseball, with women's golf, with whatever. But I do think it's cool that the non-revenue sports are going to get a cut. And I think this is a good sign for those programs, at least at Arkansas. I got a question today about the deeper we get into this NIL era, are we going to lose Olympic sports? I think we are. And I think you're going to have to choose, hey, maybe we care about one Olympic sport. Like I live in LA, not far from UCLA. They're good at men's volleyball. They're good at women's gymnastics. They're good at baseball. They're good at a lot of different, they're not going to be able to be good at all of this forever. And so it's great that some of the non-traditional sports are getting some of this money. I think what's also worth noting in that article, it said that 90% of the money is going to athletes. Why does that matter? Well, if you remember a few months ago, and this was a big issue with Arkansas specifically, is that we found out that a lot of these companies that have been helping, quote unquote, and I'm air quoting, help set up NIL deals, they were skimming money off the top. There was a company called Blueprint Sports that was working with Oregon State, working with Arkansas, working with a few others. And I don't remember what percentage it was, but they were taking a huge percentage of NIL money raised for the school and for the athletes. So the fact that 90+% is going directly to the student athletes, that's what needs to be done. And that is a great piece of news for the Arkansas Razorbacks and for their athletes. And so with that, let me go ahead and give credit to a guy that I have been at times critical of, Hunter Yurachek. So Hunter Yurachek is the AD at Arkansas. And I remember going back to the fall, that sit down that he did at the Little Rock Touchdown Club, where he said something to the effect of, what did he say? Like, there's a fast lane and we're not in the fast lane. And he said something almost directly of, we're built to win national championships in basketball and baseball, but not football. And I crushed him at the time. I said, that's not an acceptable thing for NAD to say. So to close the biggest advertising deal ever, it's not 9 figures, but I would guess it's 8 figures every year. Is it 10 million? Is it 12 million? Is it whatever? That is a big deal, and he deserves credit. Now, you have to have the commerce, within your state or within the local area or whatever, but the deal still got done. And so I know it's easy to criticize Hunter Yurachek for a lot of stuff. I give him credit for getting this deal done, and I give him credit for making sure it goes to the athletes. And to a degree, I give him credit for looking himself in the mirror and saying, What I said a few months back about football, not acceptable. Cannot say that stuff publicly. He gets the deal done. Now, I will say this. What is going to be interesting from here is a few things. One, as we record, I'm being told there is going to be another announcement at some point in the next day or so. I should probably go on social media, make sure that nothing has broken. I think it will have to do with naming rights of the football stadium. And let's just say that, that feels like, that feels like a pretty big deal to me. So we'll see what happens there. We'll see if they can get a deal done for naming rights of the football stadium. But it doesn't change the fact that Hunter Yurachek absolutely deserves a ton of credit for what he got done to get this deal done. And again, in this world where you got to figure out ways to make money, this monstrous jersey patch deal, which, by the way, I should note, it's not just jersey patches. They're the official protein of Arkansas athletics. I have the actual press release. Let me see exactly what they do for Arkansas, but they are the official protein of the University of Arkansas. They are the jersey patch sponsor, I believe, for every sport. Let me just see here. Official protein of the Arkansas Razorbacks, jersey patch placement across 19 varsity teams, men's and women's, logo placement on the fields and across sports, media backdrop at press conferences and broadcast facilities, brand ambassador programs engaging Arkansas student athletes. One, I don't know if I'm part of the brand ambassador program engaging podcasters, but again, to the Tyson Corporation, to John Tyson, we appreciate your support of this show, but credit Hunter Yurachek for getting this done. And listen, it goes without saying, credit John Tyson for stepping up for his university, for his community. And I don't know John Tyson, by the way, Mr. Tyson, I think somebody's got my address. You can always reach out to me, DM me, figure out a way. Let's get you on the show. Let's talk about it. But not even if you don't have to come on the show and talk about it. But I just give him credit because in the few interviews that he's done, I have seen him talk pretty publicly about it's not just basketball. It's not just football. It's the track programs. It's baseball. And it's clear that he has a love and a passion for the university and for the state. And so, there's an old saying of put your money where your mouth is. And he has certainly done that. The largest deal of its kind in athletics history. I think it might not be done, but again, Mr. Tyson, reach out. We would love to learn a little bit more about this deal and everything you're doing for Arkansas athletics. All right, so what we're gonna do, we're gonna come back, take a quick break. We'll talk a little bit about Tuesday night's games. It was ugly out there. It was ugly in those streets. Okay, there is some stuff to discuss though, and then we'll talk a little Bruce Branch. We got to get to some of your questions. Quick break. Be right back. All right, we're gonna get back to the show in a minute, but before we do, I have so many people that reach out and say, Torres, you give me hours and hours and hours of free content every day, every month, every year. What can I do to help support the show? Well, you want to support the show and look good in the process. Make sure to check out and support the Aaron Torres Media merch store at aarontorresonline.com/merchandise. Some of you wondering, what can I get in that merch store, Torres? Well, Kentucky fans, we got our Mark Pope Hope and Pope t-shirts. That is right. Mark Pope, monster first year. Year 2 is going to be even better. Get your Hope and Pope t-shirt at aarontorresonline.com/merchandise. Arkansas fans, the Big Pig Invasion is coming. It is here. John Calipari has things rocking. Get your Big Pig Invasion tees. Again, aarontorresonline.com/merchandise. St. John's fans, we have our Big Rick Energy t-shirts. And if you're just a college basketball fan in general, guess what? Your March is for Day Drinking shirt. That is the shirt that you need year-round, but especially for the next NCAA tournament. You can order yours now. By the way, football fans, we got you covered too. Nebraska fans, new era, new rules, the t-shirt that you need before the start of this coming season. And oh, by the way, if you're a Colorado fan, if you're just a Coach Prime fan, we have our Dion shirts and hats, more of them than we know what to do with. So to check out the full line of Aaron Torres Media merch and also support the show, good news is we're going to have even more for the fall. Check out the Aaron Torres Media merch store at aarontorresonline.com/merchandise. And for more information, you can always reach out at Aaron Torres Podcast Questions at gmail.com. All right, everybody. I'm back. Good to be back. Good to be back. Let's keep the conversation going. Before we do, a couple quick things. We're going to get to some of your questions and comments in half a second. We do have to thank our friends. Yes, our official ticketing partner, Matt. We are going to thank SeatGeek. You and I are on the same page. We got to shout out our friends at SeatGeek. It is America's #1 ticketing app. Over 28 million downloads. What I love about SeatGeek is two things. One, every ticket on the app, rated 1 through 10 with a green dot or a red dot. Green dot means go ahead and purchase. Red dot means stay away. So you always know when you're getting a good ticket. But what I really love about SeatGeek, they take care of listeners of the Aaron Torres pod. If you go to SeatGeek.com or the SeatGeek app, if you use promo code Torres, that's promo code TORRES, it gets you $20 off your first purchase. So you want to go to the SEC tournament next week. You want to go to the Big East tournament. You want to go to the last regular season game. Arkansas's final regular season game is tonight. You need tickets. SeatGeek.com, SeatGeek app, promo code Torres gets you $20 off your first purchase. And should mention, it's any ticket on the app. So you want to go to a concert, you want to go to a show, you want to go to spring training baseball. SeatGeek app, promo code Torres. SeatGeek app, promo code Torres gets you $20 off your first purchase. Really quickly, before we get to the rest of the show, a couple comments. Matt, I'll pull up one or two really quick. One, love this. Michael Gray says, well, it's Tyson chicken tenders for lunch now. Michael, an Arkansas fan. He's supporting the team just the way that John Tyson did. By the way, I should mention Michael, one of our great members of the AT YouTube community. We do live mailbags every single Thursday. If you want to be a member of our community, all you got to do is click that little join tab at the top of the screen. It is $4.99 a month. Certainly, we understand, money's tight. Not everybody can do it. But if you can, it does go a long way in support of the show. We're going to be traveling a lot. And it's just, it's something that certainly helps us. And we appreciate everybody that has signed up. Michael is certainly one. But yeah, it helps with the show. It helps us grow. It helps us get on the road. It helps us do more stuff. We're going to Circa next week. We're going to the Final Four in a couple weeks. So thank you to Michael. Thank you to all our members. If you can support us, $4.99 a month, we appreciate your support. A couple other notes. Let's see here. Zach says Learfield working on a deal for naming rights. That's what I was referencing. So I think that will probably get done in the next couple days. Jay Steve, by the way, another one. He's headed to Walmart to buy some Tyson chicken, support the team. There you go. Matt, what do you got? Ryan Fox. I've known Ryan for years. Huge UK fan. Looks like he's watching via Twitter. So I don't know, Ryan, if you're still watching. We appreciate your support here on a Monday or on a Wednesday. I get my days so confused in the middle of the week. Ryan is the man. By the way, Ryan, if you live in and around the Mint at Circa Sportsbook, we won't do the whole read, but we'll be there next Tuesday night. We would love to have you, any Kentucky fan in the Bowling Green area, Mint, Kentucky Downs. We'll be doing a watch party, free food, free drinks. Come hang out. Night before the SEC tournament next Tuesday. Can reach out Aaron Torres podcast questions to RSVP. And like I said, free food, free drinks. Kentucky Outdoors Life says if I didn't have 7 kids, I would join. 7 kids is a lot. Well, we will have free pizza there, but I do think Kentucky Outdoors Life, it's 21 and over. I'll have to check on that for you. If it is, then yeah, we can't do much for you. I have a call with the Mint this afternoon where I should get some more details, but we would love to have you. Kentucky Outdoors Life said if I didn't have so many kids, I would join. 7 kids is a lot of kids. That's the message of the day. That feels like a good Torres Unplugged or something like that. 7 kids, listen, you do you, Kentucky Outdoors Life. We appreciate your support. Matt, anything else really quickly before we wrap the show? Kentucky fans are depressed about last night. We'll talk about the game in a minute. Anything else? Holly says that Dwayne Peavy seems to be the favorite with fans from what I see. Yeah, I think so, Holly. I'll say this. I did, like I said, I don't often publicly advocate for people because it just puts me in a weird spot where other people start saying, why aren't you talking about me? You should have said. I don't do it unless I believe that they are the right person for the job, whether it's a head coaching job, an assistant coaching job, an AD job, a general manager job. It doesn't matter. I think that the what I saw was mostly positive on Dwayne. It was funny. I saw a couple people talking about, well, look at the basketball team. And then they realized, oh, The DePaul basketball team is actually better than it's been in a very long time. And I think they kind of caught themselves there. I think the big knock on Dwayne is, does he have hands-on experience running a major football program? But again, 12 years at Kentucky, I think he knows. Listen, is he going to be somebody that, is he going to be Greg Byrne from day one, who's been helping run Alabama football for 15 years? Probably not. Doesn't mean he can't be very good at the job. One or two more, then we'll wrap by talking about some of the depressing games on Wednesday. Is there anything else, Matt, that we missed? It's okay. If we can keep going, I'll tell you what. Let's just talk very briefly, and this is going to be very brief. Matt, get the trigger finger ready. We're going to rip through some of these games. They were all kind of depressing on Tuesday night, if we're going to be honest. It just feels like we have reached the final day of the season, final week of the season. Everybody's ready for conference tournaments. Some guys clearly don't like each other. Some guys clearly do. Some coaches might not like each other, so that's a great place to start. Let's go out to the late game in Tempe, Arizona. Kansas at Arizona State. Arizona State gets the win 70-60. Listen, we're not going to talk Arizona State from that perspective, but it was probably Bobby Hurley's last game. It's not even that he's going to get fired. This is the last year of his contract. They're just letting his contract run out, and I think at the end of the season, he's basically a free agent. And so this is probably his last game. He gets the win over Kansas. By the way, I saw some crazy stat. I think Kansas is like 0-4 in their history at Arizona State. Now, most of those, I think this might be the first time they've played at Arizona State as a member of the Big 12. But the story here is Kansas. They lose the game. Bill Self gets ejected early. And it feels like the momentum that Kansas had 2-3 weeks ago amidst all of the Darren Peterson drama has largely faded. They get swept on the Arizona road trip. Like I said, Bill Self gets ejected. I know there was some commentary about the ref and did he pull the trigger too quickly? Maybe he did. It doesn't change the fact that Kansas has now lost 4 of 6. Remember, they took the worst loss in program history to an unranked team at Fog Allen Fieldhouse against Cincinnati. They made a run against Arizona. I don't want to say it wasn't competitive, but they did lose by 23 points to the now Big 12 champions, and they lose by double figures on the road to Arizona State. What feels clear to me is that I actually think, this is kind of crazy to think about, I actually kind of think that maybe, just maybe, there is a possibility that Kansas, they're not better without Darren Peterson. But what I think the best version of Kansas was the first half, Darren Peterson comes in, goes crazy. The second half, he load manages. Melvin Council takes over. And I think they're kind of in this middle ground. When Darren Peterson doesn't play at all, they're really good. When Darren Peterson plays early and is effective, they are good. But when he's played the full 35, 36 minutes, it's just not clicking. And maybe he's injured. I still stand by what I've said all along. I think it's been load management all along. He was only pulling himself out of games where he was playing well and Kansas was up big. So it's not, to me, mental. Like I'm hearing this now, oh, it's a mental issue. I don't think so. What I do think is Kansas is not very good right now. Listen, they got a week to prove me wrong in the Big 12 tournament. This feels like another early exit, another disappointing season for Bill Self. I go back and forth on if this is actually going to be his last year or not. I tend to think it won't be, because a lot of the pieces on this year's team could and maybe will be back. Bryson Tiller will probably be back. Who else? I think Flory Badunga will probably be back. And then you're bringing in Talon Kinney. He's good, but he's not good enough to pull the crap that Darren Peterson has. Now, the big question is, and we talked about it yesterday, Tyron Stokes, does he end up at Kansas? Is that a headache that you maybe want? Kansas gets the loss, and it has just been such a wasted season at Kansas. Like I said, about 3 weeks ago, I thought they had turned a corner and they were a title contender. I can't say I think that anymore. You know who's not a title contender? University of Kentucky. They go to Texas A&M. They lose at Texas A&M 96-85. And anybody who watched the game knows it was not that close. It was another double figure, 20-point deficit in the second half that they sort of cut into, but they fell down too much too late. Listen, this season is a train wreck. And by the way, there's all sorts of stats that when they were up this big and then they pulled this guy and then they put that guy in. I'm going to try not to be negative too much. But what I will say, and by the way, by the way, great stat from Matt. Separate 13-0 runs from A&M and a separate 14-0 run from A&M in this game. What I will say is this, and this, by the way, if you go back a few weeks, I was very critical of Mark Pope after the Georgia loss. And what I said at the time, I said, you're not good enough to just have these complete no-shows. Like, to Mark Pope's credit, they've been good in the big games in SEC play. 2-0 against Tennessee. They beat Arkansas on the road. Auburn was down to the final play. The issue is it's these middle and bottom tier teams that they just don't show up ready to play. Complete no-show against Georgia a few weeks ago. Complete no-show in the first game against Vandy. Complete no-show largely against Texas A&M. And so all I'll say, I'm not wishing anybody ill will. And by the way, if Kentucky beats Florida, I'm not going to come on this show on Sunday and say they're a national championship contender. They're not, okay? I try to be fair. I try to be balanced. I try to, when criticism is deserved, I try to criticize. When honesty and praise is deserved, I try to praise. I'm like Kentucky Outdoors Life here. He's got 7 kids. He understands. Like Mark Pope's one of my children. Well, I'm going to praise him when he deserves to be praised, but sometimes he's got to be criticized. And so I only say that because this is my issue with Mark Pope. His teams have way too many games where they just completely show up, completely unready to play, and that falls on the coaching staff, and that falls on the preparation. It is disappointing. And the only other thing I'll say, as Kentucky gets set to bring in a new AD, obviously the number one thing that AD will be doing is evaluating Mark Pope next season. Mark Pope is going to get next year. They're not going to fire him in the middle of an AD search. But listen, Mark Pope's going to have to win and win big next year to prove to the new AD that he's the right guy going forward. And so we'll see what happens there. But I'm just now officially at the point where there's so many no-shows that I don't think this is like a get the right 7 guys in the portal and 2 high school guys and you're good to go. I think there's just so many no-shows that I think even if there's what we deem to be a successful offseason, and I think Kentucky's going to get their guys, I do still think it is going to be an on-the-court, basketball-wise, wait-and-see approach because it's 1 step forward, 2 steps back. Place where it's not 1 step forward, 2 steps back. It's just 5 steps back, 2 more steps back, 7 more steps back. BYU. They lost to Cincinnati on the road on Tuesday night. In a game, final score, BYU loses 90-68. We're going to talk about BYU in half a second because they did get 5-star Bruce Branch. I don't really have much to say here. I know that every team deals with injuries. BYU has 6 season-ending injuries. And so the only sad part is you're wasting a generational talent and a generational season from A.J. Debonsa. Now, A.J. Debonsa was not great in this game, but surprise, surprise, he's got to basically play 40 minutes every single game. And then on top of playing 40 minutes every single game, he's oftentimes now has to defend the best player on the other team because he has no other teammates. So 23 points in this game for AJ, 38 minutes played. I will say I give him a ton of credit because he could have shut it down. He could have pulled a Darren Peterson and faked a hamstring injury, said my ankle's bothering me, whatever. He's showing up and playing every single night. It's why I would take him number 1. Another conversation for another day. We'll get back to BYU in a second. Bruce Branch committed. But I will say this really quickly. Cincinnati is all of a sudden becoming a very interesting bubble team. We talk about all these mediocre teams and with this many losses and that many losses. Cincinnati now 17-13, 9-8 in the Big 12. And they have now won 6 of their last 7 games. That includes a win at Kansas. That includes a win over BYU. That includes a win over UCF, which is a tournament team as well. And so we'll see what happens. I still think they have a little bit more work to do, but I will also say this. I think if we're going to start talking about teams with 12, 13, 14 losses, we should give the benefit of the doubt to the teams in the Big 12 where the top 5 or 6 are just absolute juggernauts, okay? So we'll see what happens with Cincinnati. Cincinnati actually closes with TCU on the road. That's kind of a pretty big bubble game. TCU 20-10, 10-7 in the Big 12. They got to win over Texas Tech on Tuesday night. Cincinnati, I don't know if they need to win that game, but they do need to win that game. And then probably a win or 2 in the Big 12 tournament. But Cincinnati is all of a sudden like an interesting bubble team. Again, I I say this all the time for people who don't listen to the show daily. I don't do daily. Bracketology is its own entity. There's a lot of math involved. I'm not good at math, so I stay out of it. But I would think that Cincinnati's got to be getting closer to the bubble. Won at Kansas, beat BYU 6 of 7. And if they make it the tournament, I'd much rather see them, a team that's actually playing well down the stretch, as opposed to, no offense, Auburn, but no offense, Matt, but the Auburn Tigers, or, some of these SEC teams. A&M was losing to everybody before they won on Tuesday night. So we'll see what happens from there. Really quickly, one positive. I should spend more time on this, but I want to wrap the show with Bruce Branch and get out of here. We got to give credit to North Carolina, man. Listen, it's been discussed. I've been critical of Hubert Davis. Hubert Davis is doing a great job. North Carolina beats Clemson. They finished the regular season 18-0 at home. And there's a couple interesting things here. First off, North Carolina is now 5-1 without Caleb Wilson. Brian Squires, who is one of our members, has sent me a mailbag question that we may get to on, if we do a members only mailbag this week. But he basically asked me, he said, it's more of a statement than a question, but he basically said, like, North Carolina, they're not better without Caleb Wilson, but other guys have had to step up. And if we're under the assumption that Caleb Wilson is coming back at some point before the NCAA tournament, this will be a better team that he returns to than the one that he left, again, 2, 3, 4 weeks ago when he got hurt. So credit to North Carolina. Again, they're now 5-1. The only loss was at NC State, but they beat Clemson. They beat Louisville at home. They beat Virginia Tech at home, which is a bubble team. They won at Syracuse. They took care of Pitt. Remember, several of those games were without Henry Visar. And just think they deserve a ton of credit. So credit to North Carolina. They get the victory. They are now in 4th place in the ACC. I do still think they probably have to. They might still be able to get the double bye at the ACC tournament, even if they may still be able to get the double bye at the ACC tournament, even if they lose to Duke. But obviously, of course, North Carolina has Duke with 1 game to go. Really quickly, let's go ahead and wrap on one more topic, one more subject, and it was a little bit of a piece of recruiting news. Okay, so we just talked a minute ago, BYU. This basketball season on the court has been a disappointment. Now, I am of the belief that it has 100% to do with injuries, okay? And everyone's going to say, well, my team has injuries and this team has injuries. BYU basketball has 6 season-ending injuries, including to the second best player on the team, who was first team All Big 12 last year, to the 6th man, to the 7th man. Nate Pickens was their best defensive wing. And so it just puts BYU in a position where AJ DeBonsa and Rob Wright, basically have to be great every night. I think their season, I don't actually think their season's over. I think what they need to do, they probably actually need to lose early in the Big 12 tournament, get home, get some rest, and we'll see what happens. But I bring it up because this isn't supposed to be a negative BYU segment, but instead be a positive one. Because the momentum of this season and the momentum of getting AJ DeBonsa's commitment showed up again on Tuesday. Because on Tuesday, and by the way, shout out, we had one question in the chat yesterday: is Bruce Branch going to commit to BYU? Somebody in that chat knew something, because I get off air and it was probably about 2 Eastern time or so on NBA Today with Malika Andrews. Bruce Branch, top 5 prospect, 6'7" wing from Phoenix, plays at Prolific Prep, a guy that was the number 1 player in the class of 2027. He reclassified. He goes on NBA Today. He didn't tell anybody, which I thought it was kind of a fumble by whoever's advising him. I think it was an agency or something. Well, he committed on NBA Today to the BYU Cougars. It is basically the 3rd mega commitment that Kevin Young has gotten as the BYU head coach. Remember, 3 off seasons ago, or 2 off seasons ago, going into a 3rd, Yegor Demon, top 10 projected draft pick, overseas, comes and plays at BYU. Last year, it was AJ DeBonsa. This year, it is Bruce Branch. And by the way, Matt, I don't know if you have any of the pictures that I sent you, but Bruce Branch did go on NBA Today. We cannot show the TV coverage, but a very emotional moment. He's thanking his parents. He's thanking his brother. He says, my brother has been here every step of the way. And he starts, breaking down in tears. And I'm not being sarcastic. I'm not trying to be funny about it. It was a super sweet moment. And let me also say this. I criticize ESPN regularly. I thought Malika Andrews in that moment did an unbelievable job of helping him keep his composure. I thought it was a very emotional moment for him. He deserves it. I actually met his mom a few weeks ago at a basketball event in LA. Great family, great kid, and you can see it there. BYU Cougar, assist to Malika Andrews, who I thought did an unbelievable job. He got very emotional making the announcement. I thought it was a home run by Malika. As far as the player is concerned, he's really good. Now, here's the problem. He's going to be compared to AJ DeBonsa. He is not AJ DeBonsa. There's only one AJ DeBonsa. There's only one guy who is going to lead college basketball as a scoring as a freshman, but he is really good. And what I will say is there was no AJ DeBonsa in this 2026 class. He is probably the closest replacement, though. 6'7", super athletic, gets to his spots. It's interesting. He plays high school ball with Caleb Holt, who I think is going to end up at Arizona here in the next few weeks. And I went to one of their games, met the family a few weeks ago. By the way, quick shout out to Will Voigt, the assistant coach at BYU, who was in the building that night. So BYU putting in the work gets their guy. And I thought it was interesting because Caleb Holt is very clearly the more college-ready prospect right now, probably NBA-ready with his body. But Bruce Branch, you can tell, like when he fills out, when he gets in a weight training program, when he ends up at BYU, he's going to put on weight and he's going to be a dog. Now, he's not going to be AJ DeBonsa, and I think that's important to note. But what I will say is I thought, let me give credit because he gets a lot of crap on social media. I actually thought Jeff Goodman had a good analogy. Said, could he be like a Nate Amen at Tennessee? And I know Nate Amen's out with an injury, but you get the point. Of not great early, but finds his stride in late December, early January, early February. I think that could be the pathway for Bruce Branch. When by this time next year, we're talking about him as one of the best freshmen in college basketball. So they get their guy, great building block. And I think there's a couple things. One, first of all, another great recruiting win for Kevin Young. And I want to spend half a second talking about Kevin Young because I think there's this notion of, well, Kevin Young's getting all these recruiting wins, but what is he doing with all this talent? I think it's nonsense. Matt, you can pop up. I think it's the original tweet that I sent you. Tony Jones, who I believe covers the Utah Jazz. Not trying to pick on him. I don't know him. But he did tweet out the other day. He said, Kevin Young is going to face some pressure to start doing something with all these five-star guys he keeps getting in terms of team success. I fundamentally disagree. I don't think Kevin Young should be feeling any heat, any pressure. Listen, he wants to win because he's a competitor. But remember, what did I say a minute ago? 6 season-ending injuries. By the way, year one, Sweet 16, second weekend since 2011, would say year one was a success. This year, I'm sorry, I know every team deals with injuries. I've never heard of a team with 6 season-ending injuries, especially on a team in the most anticipated season in program history with the best player that they'll probably ever have. So don't sell me on that. And then I think the important part is AJ DeBonsa. Don't tell me that this AJ DeBonsa thing has been a success story for BYU. I think this is an important note. You want to criticize Kevin Young for the win-loss record? Okay, we can have that conversation. Here's the thing, though. AJ DeBonsa came to BYU with more hype than you could ever imagine. The most anticipated freshman clearly in program history. The potential number 1 pick. I think AJ DeBonsa, despite the injuries, has somehow exceeded expectations at BYU, which is insane considering he was the most anticipated freshman in school history. It has been a success. We owe Kevin Young credit for bringing the most out of AJ DeBonsa. And I will say this, the DeBonsa family, I know for a fact, played a role with Bruce Branch. Now, you can pop Bruce Branch back up if you want to, if you're feeling frisky right now. One, I know for a fact. So I guess it would have been January, Bruce Branch visited for the Arizona game. And in that moment, I think behind the scenes, there was a lot with agents and, NIL and this and that. And the family sat down with the DeBonsa family. And the DeBonsa family was like, look, you're going to get your money. I have no idea what the number is, but you're going to get your money. You might be able to get more somewhere else. But look at what this place is doing for our son. He is going to be the number 1, number 2 pick in the draft. Kevin Young has delivered on every single thing that he promised in recruiting. And I know that message from AJ DeBonsa played with the Branch family as well. I don't know all the NIL numbers. I don't know if BYU is the highest bidder. I'll say the same thing I said about AJ DeBonsa a year ago. I think NIL, no one can say that NIL played no factor. I think it actually probably played less of a factor than people think. So credit the DeBonsa family. I saw some BYU beat writers reference this, and I think it was a good point. We also have to credit AJ, and this was why whatever BYU spent on AJ was worth it, because this showed that it was okay and it was cool to go to BYU. We know what people thought about the place before. We knew about whatever. AJ DeBonsa said, no, you can come here and you can do what you need to do, and you can get better in basketball, and you can focus on basketball, and you can play in the Big 12, and you can play on TV every single week, and you can play in the best league in the country, and you're going to get better. And it's fair to say there probably is no Bruce Branch committing to BYU if it wasn't for AJ DeBonsa. Finally, what I would say is I think it'll be interesting to see what ends up happening with the rest of the roster around Bruce Branch. You have this 5-star that you've built around, and I just think it's going to be very interesting to see who you can get around him. Now, it is worth noting BYU does have one other commitment in the class of 2026. It is a local player named Dean Ruckert. He's about a top 50 or so player. Now, I'll be honest, there's only so much bandwidth. I'm not I know the top guys. I am told Dean Rucker, though, is one of the most improved players in high school basketball this year. I haven't seen enough to say definitively. I'll default to the Adam Finkelsteins of the world, the Travis Branhams of the world. I'm told Dean Rucker is probably the most improved player in high school basketball this year. A lot of people are excited about him, and so I am excited to see how it all unfolds. But I will also add this. I think it's going to be very interesting to see what happens with the roster around them. Obviously, AJ DeBonsa is going to be done. Obviously, Richie Saunders and Kaba Cater are out of eligibility. And then it becomes, what are the pieces that you put around those guys? I think the big question going into the offseason, Rob Wright, I would think he is going to come back. He has been, I think, largely what they were hoping for. 18 points, 5 assists per game, all while shooting 42% from three. I think the big issue is, listen, Rob Wright is the kind of guy that, he's going to demand a lot in NIL. He's probably not a long-term NBA player. So is he one of those guys that just, if he gets a bigger bag somewhere else, does he go somewhere else? Does he return? I think I think when he's your point guard, you have to build a certain way around him, pray for no injuries. But I would expect Rob Wright to be back. I would expect, by the way, on top of Rob Wright, Dawson Baker, I think, is the interesting one, right? He was the sixth man, one of the 6 season-ending injuries, who averaged 7.5 points per game before his injury. I saw reports that he still could come back because the injury happened at a certain time of year where he can technically take a red shirt. So that is a player you want back. I think he now, prior to the Richie Saunders injury, I think you could say he was probably the most impactful, player that was not available to this team. And then there's some other interesting pieces as well. Kennard Davis, junior year, has not been what BYU fans were hoping for. 3-point percentage is down from a year ago. Scoring is not what you thought it was going to be. Is he back? I think that's an interesting question. Our buddy Kadeem Boop, who, every time I go on social media, I see all sorts of fans, clamoring for more time for Kadeem Boop. Good energy guy, good hustle guy. Go back to the Iowa State win a few weeks ago, 5 points, 10 rebounds. Shout out Boop Watch on Instagram. Love following that account. I would bring back Kadeem Boop. We'll see if he does, if BYU does. But by the way, Andre Kostic is actually playing very well here over the last couple weeks. He is a guy that play double figures in each of the last 3 games. So I think it's an interesting team. I do still think you need one more major portal add because, again, Bruce Branch, as good as he is, he's not quite AJ DeBonsa, which isn't a knock. There's nobody in college basketball like AJ DeBonsa, but I think he'll be really good. Dean Ruckert's coming in. I would think Rob Wright is coming back, and then it becomes a very interesting thing of what you do around those guys. All right. I think that's it for this episode of the Aaron Torres pod. Anything else? Anything else in the chat? Michael Gray, no talk about the Alabama loss. I'm on the bad side of Alabama fans right now. Yeah, I'm just staying away. I'll tell you what, this is a great BYU question. BYU needs a big man. Ahmed didn't work out, and Staten is still raw. Great call. I don't think Abdullah Ahmed is coming back to BYU next year. It has been highly disappointing. Let's just put it that way. It's been highly disappointing. All right. We got a lot going on. There's too much going on in the chat right now. We got some people still talking about the Mitch Barnhart stuff. We got some people talking about the we got all sorts of things going on in the chat. I think it's time for us to get out of here. Monster show, fun show. I think that's going to be it for today, though. We'll be back. We'll come back on Tuesday or Thursday. I'm tired, man. That was a long show, but a fun show. We're going to come back to Thursday. We'll react to Arkansas, Texas. I think that's the end of the SEC. For this week. I think Arkansas, Texas might be the only game, so we'll kind of know what the stakes are going into Saturday. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I think this is Michael Gray's question from a minute ago. Because of the Alabama loss, if Arkansas were to win tonight, yeah, they would still need, we'll see what ends up happening. But Arkansas looking like they're in pretty good shape for the double bye at the SEC tournament. It would certainly help if they were able to get it done today against Texas. All right, I'm going to roll. Time to go. A couple quick reminders. One, if you're in Kentucky, if you're in the Bowling Green area, next Tuesday, March 10th, Circa Sportsbook at the Mint Kentucky Downs. We'd love to have you. Free food, free drinks, all that good stuff. We are going to be there. I have a call with the Mint in about an hour from now, so I'll get you a final time tomorrow. Probably going to be 7 Eastern, 6 local time. Free food, free drinks. We're going to hang out. We're going to watch some games, maybe throw down a few wagers. We'll have a good time. Email me, Aaron Torres, podcastquestions@gmail.com. Aaron Torres, podcastquestions@gmail.com. What else? Thank you to SeatGeek. Promo code Torres gets you $20 off your first purchase. And thank you to Cauley Puffs. Promo code Torres gets you 15% off all purchases. Time to go. Thank you, guys. We'll be back Thursday morning. Can't even imagine what we'll talk about. Time to go. Appreciate you. Shout out to Torrent Craig, Rachel, who hates my voice, JJ Reddick, UFN. Unblock me. Be back Thursday morning. Aaron Torres.